Well, I think smart mobility is really, really important for anybody who is responsible for the operation of any kind of infrastructure which has a reliance on transportation. And by that, it might be the transportation of users, the public who are using the infrastructure, or it might just be the transportation of the employees who are operating the infrastructure. But however you look at it, I would think that a lot of the assets for which investors are responsible actually have a large transportation element. Now, the reason why it's so important is it's actually quite a strategic one. I mean, you just look in the UK, you look at the whole net zero agenda. I don't know exactly what that's going to mean. I think we're just, as an industry, beginning to scratch the surface of the kind of disruption to the status quo that might be involved in actually reaching net zero. But what we do know is that transportation and changes in the way we access mobility services as a whole are absolutely going to be fundamental on that transition to net zero. I think there's a temptation when you're looking at a truly digital service like smart mobility and ride sharing. I think there's a temptation to potentially look at it as a standalone investment opportunity. And I think when it comes to infrastructure and people who have responsibility for investing in and operating essential public infrastructure, that's the wrong way to look at it. Yes, smart mobility is part of a much wider strategic imperative. And I think smart mobility is a really good example of how by sharing data we can really drive very big societal and environmental benefits. And so I would urge people to look at smart mobility as part of the sort of value add, a way to enhance the transportation and carbon footprint of their existing assets. It's a component in the jigsaw that makes a high-performing asset by the new values that we subscribe to assets, such as how much carbon, for example. How does it work for the users? How do the community engage with the asset? And these kind of new metrics, I think smart mobility is a really important part of how we're going to deliver on those very, very important metrics going forward. Smart mobility services really do come back to the ability to share data and really create these quite thriving data economies in order to achieve wider benefits for society, for users, environmental benefits, and so on. And we really do need to encourage and incentivize collaboration, because by doing that, we support innovation by companies in this area and really allow them to sort of invest in sustainable business models, which we can then utilize in order to drive higher performance assets. And so I think the role of advisors like myself, of investors and other stakeholders in the infrastructure asset cycle is to think about how we are creating the right commercial conditions around the operation of the assets, where we really allow that sort of collaboration to thrive and where we allow these data economies to emerge.